Hey y'all, welcome back to Right at the Wire. Well, we're getting closer to Saratoga, so I thought I'd drop a line and just pass on some helpful little information that will help you in crafting your tickets. And it's a very challenging meet. There's a lot of horses coming in from all over the place, but there are some constants to keep in mind when you're crafting your tickets. So let's take a look at it. So let's take a look at trainers first. And of course, Chad Brown and Todd Pletcher, everybody knows. They're going to be lights out at Saratoga. They always are. Chad Brown's from Saratoga, so he really looks forward to it, gears up for it. Anything on turf, in particular with Rod Ortiz. And Flavian Pratty's been using a little bit more lately, too, at equally good, especially off long layoffs. And that's when you can count on a Chad Brown horse coming off the bench. Don't have any reservations at all about betting them because they're going to fire. Todd Pletcher, of course, we know 2-year-olds, first-time starters. They always seem to be run professionally. They rate usually very well, but they can go on the lead regardless whatever the situation requires. He's, of course, Rod Ortiz is his A rider right now, but he'll spread it around a little bit. But Rod usually means he's most serious. Anybody else, other than maybe Johnny Velasquez, then he's not quite as certain, I don't believe. Steve Asmussen kind of flies under the radar in comparison to the top two, but he is the all-time winningest trainer for a reason. He knows how to win. He does so at Saratoga. It's really good to note how a trainer is doing prior to getting to Saratoga, and I can tell you at Ellis Park he was lights out, and he nailed me with Pauline's Pearl. And that horse had terrible form, and you know what? Still came up and winning, and that's just a sign of a barn that's really going well right now because that horse's form was not good. So be on the lookout for him. 2-year-olds, dirt, and stakes races, that's where he's going to do his damage. You'll never see him on turf. If you do, I'd almost toss him right away just on principle. Bill Mott, of course, it doesn't matter. Dirt, turf, sprints, roots, he's solid in all of them. We know first-time starters, not quite as good as some of the others, but he has been getting better at it lately, so it's not an automatic toss. You just got to pay attention to the work tab, and obviously if he has Junior Alvarado aboard as a rider, then he's probably serious. He's been having a lot more 2- and 3-year-olds going for the Derby trail of late, so I think it's incumbent upon him, and I think he knows that he needs to get them going a little earlier, so they're not an automatic toss. Great trainer, particularly on the big stakes days. That's when he really loves to shine. Mike Maker does most of his work at the claiming level, particularly stretching horses out at longer distances, 2-turn turf races. He loves to claim them and stretch them out. So anytime you see a 2-turn turf race, you really want to pay special attention to Mike Maker horses. Linda Rice used to be turf sprints and 2-year-olds were her thing, but she has really rounded out her game. Claiming in allowance levels, she's excellent, and her horses have been firing great. She just won the training title at Belmont, so her barn is on all cylinders right now. So you're gonna see a lot of chalk with her. Rudy Rodriguez, he was. If you look at his stats at Belmont, he wasn't so hot at the beginning of the meet, but he really turned it on late. So his barn is coming into Saratoga in really good shape. The claiming level, first off the claim in particular, he's adept at. He can throw an allowance horse in there on occasion, but really good at the claiming level. Christophe Clement, of course, we know on turf, he's kind of flies under the radar a little bit because he's not as high profile as some of the others, but he's an excellent trainer. He's going to do most of his damage on turf. He was a little quiet at Belmont, but I'm fairly certain that's because he was getting ready for Saratoga, so expect him to fire. Jeremiah Engelhardt, first off the claim in particular, is an excellent angle for him. The claiming ranks is where he's going to do his damage, and you'll see him coming from all over the place with him, but it doesn't matter. They fire when they're at Saratoga. Danny Gargan's a New York trainer, and he was awful quiet at Belmont. I have a feeling he was gearing up for Saratoga. He's another one, does a lot of his work at the claiming level. He'll throw a stakes caliber horse in there on occasion, but claiming an allowance is where I take him most seriously. So you got a good core set of trainers. There's always a couple that come in from other places that occasionally are hot. Shug McGahee, most of the time he's pretty good. So particularly with the Phipps stable when their horses are running, or Joseph Allen, those are a couple of his big time clients. George Weaver in particular was very hot at Belmont, and so I expect him to be firing on all cylinders in Saratoga. Brendan Walsh is another one that his barn is really doing well, and once it gets hot, it stays hot. So anytime he puts Tyler Gaffalione aboard a horse, pay attention. So there's every once in a while there's a new shooter who heats up, who flies under the radar, but there's your core 10 to pay attention to automatically. Now let's take a look at jockeys. Of course, we all know the Ortiz brothers, Erod and Jose. It doesn't matter who Erod is riding for, the odds are going to be bet down on any horse, and for good reason. He's an excellent jockey, dirt, turf, sprints, roots, doesn't matter. Jose Ortiz, just about as equally as good, in particular when he's with Linda Rice. They have been a really potent combination at Belmont. They were clicking at 30%. And he's become her new A rider. Still uses Jose Lezcano, who's another one that not to be underestimated. But particularly with Linda Rice, Jose's been doing a lot of damage, and he just won the training title at Belmont. Luis Saez is an excellent jockey. We all saw the great work he did on Tapit Trice. Got the absolute maximum out of a really enigmatic horse, and he's an excellent jockey. Not quite as good on turf, but he's... He particularly horses that are to be aggressively ridden, he's an excellent jockey. Been in a bit of a slump lately. He was 0 for 16 at Belmont towards the end of the meet, which was a big surprise. So, it happens. Sometimes jockeys go into slumps. So be on the lookout for that. Doesn't mean he won't snap out of it, but it's just something to keep in mind. Joel Rosario, we have been chiding him all year. Just can't figure out what's going on with him. He seems to always take, no matter who the horse is, he takes him to the back, and he wants to ride the same race closing, no matter what the horse wants to do. He seems to have gotten out of that lately, but he's still prone to falling back into it. And so he's not an automatic like he used to be. If a horse is going to be coming from the clouds or coming from behind, he's your guy. Otherwise, it's always going to be about the horse first, but just something to keep in mind. Javier Castellano, what can you say? He's having a great year. He finally got his Derby, got his Belmont, so now he has his Triple Crown. He's been a quietly good jockey for a long time, and probably not riding as much as he used to, but he still gives his all every time. He's an excellent jockey. John Velasquez, what can you say? He's a Hall of Famer. He's another one who's been stepping back a little bit, doesn't ride as much, but you can always count on him, particularly of late. Horses on the front end, like that masterful job he did with National Treasure and the Preakness, but he's well-rounded. He can do it all, dirt, turf, it doesn't matter. He's actually been back with Todd Pletcher a little more than he had been of late, so he's one to always to pay attention to when he's on a horse. Manny Franco is really emerging as an excellent jockey, in particular on turf. He is really something. Yeah, he's turf and roots are really strong suits of his. So anytime you see him on a turf horse, Chad Brown's been reaching out to him a lot lately, and I think that's a byproduct of it. So pay attention with turf and roots, in particular with Manny Franco. Jose Lezcano's been I guess you'd call him a second-tier jockey, but he's an excellent rider. Linda Rice, he was the A rider for quite some time, and she still reaches out to him for her better mounts, so always pay attention to that. Ricardo Santana is another one that, he isn't Steve Asmusen's A rider anymore, but he was red hot down in at Ellis Park, and he has really been on fire lately, so that's something to take note of. I noticed he's been riding with Ray Handel a little bit, but excellent rider. Junior Alvarado, if Bill Mott puts him on a horse, obviously there's some big intentions there. He's a good, solid jockey, but he does most of his damage with Bill Mott. And this, I think, is the most important bit of data to keep in mind. We all know about trainers and jockeys for the most part, but the sires at Saratoga Saratoga is a horse for the course track. Horses that like Saratoga will, even if they're running poorly elsewhere, will come back and most of the time run really well. As an example, Pomeroy, some of you may remember, was a 7-furlong sprinter. No one could beat him at Saratoga. Anywhere else he was pretty ordinary, but at Saratoga he was lights out. There's a lot of horses like that, and it usually stems from their sire. There are certain sires that, Tappets, they don't like Churchill Downs, but they do like Saratoga. So this is a list of sires to pay attention to when you're looking at horses. And also their sons. For instance, Speightstown is a great sire at Saratoga, but Munnings is too, and because Munnings ran very well at Saratoga. So it's important to look at that family tree. Into Mischief being the leader. So any of his they're pretty good at first-time starters, but in other areas, if they're coming to Saratoga for the first time, that's maybe something that maybe you give them a little more credence. Tappet, we all know the issues with Tappets, but they do like running at the spot. Speightstown, sprints in particular, but he will get turf routers. Malibu Moon, 2-turn races for sure. Curlin, mostly on dirt, occasionally on turf. Central Banker is a New York sire, a son of Speightstown. And he would, most of the time they're sprint oriented, but every once in a while he'll get a router like General Banker we saw on the Derby Trail. And, they occasionally they'll get a mile. They're not going to get much more than that. Uncle Mo, another one, he ran great at Saratoga, and any of his that are going there, you should take seriously. Candy Ride. So if it's Candy Ride, then Gun Runners too are ones to think about. Flatter is from the AP Indy tree. Sneaky good sire. You don't see him that often, but he's a pretty good carrier of the AP Indy line, and so that's one to pay attention to. Same thing with Mineshaft. You don't see too many of them anymore, but those are the sires and their sons. Those family trees. If you see them, particularly in the maiden races, if you're trying to decide between who to throw out and who to keep, maybe you want to, if you got a horse by one of these sires, maybe that's one you throw in the mix as opposed to tossing, because it does make a great deal of difference at the spot. So there's some extra information for you. A lot of that's old hat. You're probably already aware of it, particularly when it comes to the trainers of the jockeys. But the sire information, I think, is really important. Sometimes it's really hard to separate 2-year-old first-time starters because a lot of them have pretty glorious pedigrees, but not all of them are successful at Saratoga. So those sires who have a positive record sometimes can make the difference when you're having trouble separating 2-year-olds. The other thing that's really important to note is that horses who won in a particular scenario the year before, a lot of times they will be put right back into that same scenario, and there may be a pattern that was taking place leading up to that victory at the Spa that they're going to try to repeat. So, and I've been capping the first couple of cards and noticed it a couple of times. So really important to take note of that. Not necessarily, horses don't have to necessarily be in great form to come in the Spa. If they like the track and they won at it in a particular scenario, their record or their form may not indicate it right away. So if you go back a little bit and you find those patterns, it can really make a big difference. So just a little something to think about. Our website, we are still working towards getting that up and running, and hopefully we'll have it by opening day, if not very shortly thereafter. And of course, as I mentioned, we do have a loyalty program built in for you existing subscribers, and anybody who subscribes up until Wednesday, July 12th, will certainly be able to take advantage of it as well. Just my way to say thank you for your loyalty and your support. So that's coming up. Every day they have a stakes race at Saratoga. We're going to have a video posting to discuss it. So you'll have some analysis there. And of course, on the bigger days, perhaps we'll delve into a sequence or something of that nature that perhaps we won't cover in our other handicapping on the website. So just some added things that we'll add in for you. Of course, if you do like what you see here, please like and subscribe. Thanks for coming by. Can't wait to be seeing you regularly as we delve into Saratoga. It's going to be a great meet. Hopefully, it's going to be a dry one. All that rain up north really kind of concerning. So I don't know what's going to go on with the turf course, but we'll keep our fingers crossed for good racing. I'll be talking to you in the very near future, and until then, be well.